Liam was a 27-year-old journalist from Edinburgh. He wrote articles for a quiet travel magazine. He liked calm places, cold morning tea, and reading old books. He was not an adventurous man, but his boss gave him a simple task: visit a tiny island off the western coast of Scotland and write a short article about its quiet life. The island was called Isle of Blackwood. It was very small, with high grey cliffs, dark green hills, and only one old lighthouse. On a cold Tuesday afternoon, Liam sat on a small wooden fishing boat. The fisherman, an old man named Cormac, looked at the dark grey sky with a worried expression. "A bad storm is coming, young man," Cormac said, holding the wooden wheel. "You should not stay long on Blackwood. The island is isolated, and the sea becomes violent at night." "I only need a few hours," Liam replied, pulling his wool coat tighter. "I want to talk to the lighthouse keeper, write my notes, and return on tomorrow's boat." Cormac shook his head slowly. "The lighthouse keeper, Thomas, does not talk much. In fact, nobody has heard his voice in 5 years. Be careful out there." When the boat reached the small wooden pier of Blackwood, the wind was already blowing hard. Heavy rain began to drop from the sky. Cormac left Liam on the pier and quickly sailed away before the ocean waves grew too big. Liam stood on the wet shore alone. The wind howled through the rocks. High above him, on the highest cliff, stood the black and white lighthouse. Its bright beam of light was already turning slowly against the dark sky. Liam picked up his heavy leather bag and began walking up the steep stone path. He needed shelter fast because the storm was getting worse every minute. When Liam reached the top of the cliff, he stood before the heavy wooden door of the lighthouse. He knocked 3 times. The sound was swallowed by the loud thunder above. After a few moments, the door opened with a slow creak. A tall man stood in the doorway. He was about 60 years old, wearing a thick navy sweater and muddy boots. He had a long grey beard and sad, tired eyes. This was Thomas, the silent lighthouse keeper. "Hello, sir," Liam said loudly over the wind. "My name is Liam. I am a journalist from Edinburgh. The storm came early and the boat left. May I stay here tonight?" Thomas did not say a word. He looked at Liam for a long time, then stepped back and opened the door wider, inviting him inside. The inside of the lighthouse was warm and dry. A small cast-iron stove burned brightly in the corner. Old maps and brass nautical instruments covered the wooden walls. On a round table sat a copper radio, an old lamp, and 2 mugs of hot black tea. Thomas pointed to a chair near the fire and handed Liam a mug. "Thank you," Liam said, sitting down. "Do you live here all alone?" Thomas simply nodded. He pointed to his own throat and shook his head gently. He was completely silent. Liam understood that Thomas could not, or would not, speak. Thomas pulled a small notepad and a pencil from his pocket, wrote a quick message, and showed it to Liam. "Stay near the fire. Do not go to the top tower tonight." Liam read the note with curiosity. "Why not?" he asked. Thomas did not write another answer. He just pointed to the stairs leading up to the light, locked the door at the bottom of the staircase with a heavy iron key, and put the key inside his pocket. Then he sat down across from Liam and stared quietly at the flames. By 10 o'clock at night, the storm outside was terrifying. Huge waves crashed against the stone base of the lighthouse, and heavy rain hit the small glass windows. Thomas stood up, walked to a small cot in the corner of the room, and closed his eyes to sleep. Liam, however, could not sleep. His mind was full of questions. Why did Thomas lock the top tower? Why did the fisherman say the island was dangerous? Liam sat by the table, writing in his journal. Next to him on the table sat the old copper radio. It was turned off, its dark screen cold. Suddenly, At exactly 11:30 p.m., the radio clicked on by itself. Bzzzt. Liam jumped in surprise. Green light flickered across the radio display. Loud static noise filled the room. Liam looked over at Thomas, but the old keeper was sleeping deeply, motionless on his cot. Liam leaned closer to the radio. He tried to turn the volume knob to turn it off, but the knob was stuck. Through the harsh static, a sound began to emerge. It was not music, and it was not a normal radio broadcast. It was the sound of voices. "Is anyone there? The ship is sinking near the northern rocks. October 12th, 1944. A man's voice called out faintly. Then another voice joined, clearer this time. "This is Captain Miller. The fog is too thick. We cannot see the lighthouse." Liam's heart pounded in his chest. He checked the radio dial. The frequency was set to an old emergency channel that had not been used in decades. The voices sounded distant, desperate, and very old. They were not live broadcasts. They sounded like recorded memories coming directly out of the sea. The strange radio transmissions continued for 20 minutes, then stopped abruptly, leaving only silence and the sound of the wind. Liam sat in the dark, his hands trembling slightly. Those were distress calls from old shipwrecks, he thought. How is this radio receiving them? He looked at Thomas. The keeper had turned away toward the wall. Slipping out from beneath Thomas's pillow was the metallic glint of the iron key. Liam knew he should stay by the fire as the note instructed, but his curiosity as a journalist was too strong. He needed to find out what was happening at the top of the lighthouse. Moving as quietly as a cat, Liam crept across the wooden floor. He reached out and gently slid the key from under the pillow. Thomas stirred slightly, but did not wake up. Liam stepped to the heavy wooden door that led to the top tower. He inserted the iron key into the lock. The door unlocked softly. Liam opened it, stepped through, and began climbing the narrow spiral stone staircase. The stairs were cold and damp. The sound of the storm grew louder as he climbed higher. After 70 steps, he reached the glass lantern room at the very top of the lighthouse. The huge glass lamp was turning slowly, casting a brilliant beam of yellow light out into the dark ocean. But as Liam stepped into the room, he noticed something strange attached to the lamp mechanism. It was a complex network of copper wires, glass tubes, and old brass microphones pointing out toward the open sea. The entire lighthouse beam was connected to a massive amplifier system. The lighthouse was not just sending light out to the ocean, it was gathering something back from the water. Liam stepped closer to the glass windows. Down below, the dark ocean was violent. But as the beam of light swept across the water, Liam saw something impossible. In the middle of the glowing light, figures appeared on the water's surface. They were translucent, like blue shadows. He saw the faint outline of an old 1940s wooden ship struggling against the waves, and figures on the deck calling out for help. Every time the light hit a specific spot in the sea, the radio in his pocket, which he had brought with him, played the matching voice. The lighthouse light was acting as a bridge, catching the echoes of lost ships and forgotten sailors trapped in the island's fierce magnetic storms. "You were not supposed to come up here," a quiet, raspy voice said behind him. Liam spun around in shock. Thomas was standing at the top of the stairs, but he was not mute. He had spoken. His voice was low and rough from years of disuse. You can speak," Liam gasped. Thomas walked slowly into the light of the turning lamp. His face looked tired, but gentle. "I choose not to speak to the world outside," Thomas said softly, looking out at the glowing sea. "If people knew what happens here, they would turn this place into a circus. They would not understand." "What is this place, Thomas?" Liam asked, pointing at the wires and the glowing sea. "What are those voices?" The waters around Blackwood have swallowed ships for 300 years, Thomas explained, placing his hand on the glass. The copper rocks beneath this island act like a giant recording tape. During violent storms, the sea plays back its memories. My grandfather built this amplifier to listen to them, to make sure these lost souls are not forgotten. Liam stared at the silent shadows disappearing into the dark ocean as the light turned away. "Why stay here alone?" Liam asked gently. "It must be so lonely." Thomas pulled a small silver pocket watch from his coat and opened the lid. Inside was a black and white photograph of a young woman with a warm smile. "In 1982, my sister was on a small fishing boat that disappeared off these rocks," Thomas said quietly. "Every storm, I come up here. I listen to every voice that comes through the static, hoping that one night I will hear her say goodbye." Liam looked at the old man. The mystery was no longer scary. It was a story of love, memory, and devotion. "I won't tell anyone," Liam said firmly. "Your secret is safe with me." Thomas looked at the young journalist and offered a rare, genuine smile. "Thank you, Liam." By morning, the storm had passed. The sky turned a clear, crisp blue, and the ocean became as smooth as glass. Old Cormac returned with his fishing boat to pick Liam up from the pier. As Liam walked down the stone path, he turned around one last time. Thomas was standing near the door, waving a quiet farewell. When Liam returned to his office in Edinburgh, his boss asked him about the trip. "So, what did you find on Blackwood?" his boss asked. "Is there anything interesting about that old lighthouse?" Liam looked out the window at the sunny city streets, then down at his empty notebook. "Nothing unusual," Liam lied with a soft smile. "Just a quiet old island, a broken radio, and a silent keeper watching the sea."